Kestrel. And are we going to find out? Are they going to pick anything? That is a last-minute decision to call out the Fortress pick. I guess, yeah, that they're really worried about them going Crystal Petal with a weapon Kestrel. So now the most sense is, well, put that Petal weapon in the lane and then go for a Crystal jungler that can invade Fortress early on. Rhyme can work, Bull can work. Yeah. Even Alpha could be really good against this Fortress, just going in aggressive at level 2, trying to steal away those camps.
Yeah, the Alpha or Rhyme, I believe, both really nice picks in that situation. And in a team comp that you know is going to jump into you, I think for Rhyme makes that much more sense. However, they could always go with, okay, they choose the Alpha. I was saying another possibility would go with the poke comp that some teams like to do of putting the Samuel CP in jungle, but they do pick up the Alpha in the end, and I think it has enough early game power spike off the back of that Aftershock to work out for them, and I would just hope that the side of the A side, that being Bren Esports, also build Aftershock early on that Fortress. Otherwise, there's just really no damage there, and you end up just losing out the early game, in my opinion, a lot of the time.
I certainly agree. You shouldn't go Stormcrown first on any junglers this patch. There isn't a jungler that benefits from Stormcrown first. Maybe Stormguard Banner on Fortress, and maybe on Taka, probably not. Just go double Weapon Blade and build full Crystal. But yeah, on this Fortress, he needs to go Aftershock, even though Alpha is so good against Fortress because he's all about burst with that Aftershock proc, maybe into a Broken Myth for even more burst with the Shield Pierce. But Alpha's great against burst. She can tank it and then use her ultimate and just have another life. So Alpha's a nice pick against the Fortress. It's going to be tough to go in aggressive, but it's going to have to be necessary. You have to invade against this Fortress before he hits level 6. Fortress should have lost quite a lot of his jungle camps to your Alpha. I think the reason they didn't go for Samuel with a poke comp is because the Mortal Wound from Fortress is really annoying for Samuel. He loves having the healing, loves having sustain, and so Mortal Wound kind of cuts that off and makes it so Samuel isn't anywhere near as useful as he normally is. But the Alpha isn't all about sustain. Lyra's Heal, yeah, it's going to be helpful. It's going to be nice to have that with your Alpha, but it's more important that you go in for damage than trying to sustain.
Yeah, I think it really is, as you say, the damage that Impunity need to be looking for will be in how aggressive they play their comp. And Impunity, I feel like they can do it, especially from the display we've seen them put on these last few, yesterday and from the earlier match today.
Can Impunity do it? Can Impunity take the series 2-0? We're loading into the Halcyon Fold second game. So casting this game once again, Alquestial and Luxuria, take it away.
Hello, and welcome back. Yes, we are into the second game between Impunity and Bren Esports now. And to be quite honest with you, when I'm looking over at draft of Bren Esports, I kind of expected this Fortress to come out because in this particular draft, it's just so very similar to the draft that was brought out by Renegades themselves with that Adagio and Fortress. But I haven't quite seen Bren Esports actually go, use this draft at all. I mean, use this for team comp at all. So I'm not sure as to how they would perform. But Guessing X on this Churnwalker definitely landing some hooks and chains.
Yep, and as Minima said before, Churnwalker in the early game, a very strong hero, especially when contesting over this outer treant. You can see them going in without fear, trying to go for it, but I think Queasy picked that one up, and they did manage to do so, and now trying to put down the pressure onto Guessing being the low target, but they need to be careful of Futility of Life that's gonna really kick in to keep him alive that much longer than you expect. And Queasy rotating to the enemy backs right away, not going to find them just yet, but they're surely about to come up in just a second. And so is Mr. Jim on that Adagio going to spot out Queasy. And it looks like there's also a fight breaking out across the fold over when we look at Guessing, who's falling so very low to Dev Q. First Blood going over to that pedal. And Mr. Jim might fall to Queasy as we jump back to this other fight that is going down. So a lot of aggression in favor of Impunity, and it is what we want to see and what we like to see. That Imperial Sigil keeping DefQ alive. They're able to pick up the Fortress as well. But Mr. Jim looking for some harassment onto Quarterball now. A return kill in Hope, and he gets it. And this minion wave pushed up quite far, and a bit of a mess up in the lane, to say the least. DefQ fairly low themselves. Needs to be careful not to get hooked by Guessing, because they can get tormented into Mr. Jim's attack range. And already the range on Adagio go fairly well on its own. Queasy, however, looking for Mr. Jim, just goes in there with the Prime Directive and takes up an early kill. So kills across the board and so much aggression as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Fortress just rotates up and picks up DevQ now, but they do have the trampoline available to them, so a bit more mobile than that of Adagio.
Right, I really like the aggression coming through from QC. Very similar to the alpha we saw yesterday when it was up against that of Fortress, but this time around QC will actually port back, get her items, get more items just to burst down that a Fortress if Sync1 ever tries to, you know, contest his own camps or secure his own camps. Not so much of a contest when you're up against CP Alpha and, you know, you're a Fortress. So, you know, in the early game wise, although kills are getting traded throughout, but, you know, Impunity having the 2-kill lead and definitely looking very well for themselves. Although QC sitting at 23 CS over to Sync1 16, there is still not much of a goal lead going across the board, but now the entirety of Bren Esports will rotate down to find Alpha, but Alpha will just strut away.
Yep, and we do see Alpha decide to not go for that fight, instead rotate back to that backs, and already seeing it 23 CS over to the 17 on Sync 1 for that Fortress, so they did manage to get themselves a bit ahead of Fortress early on, and hopefully it'll help in terms of levels as well, as we see that whole level ahead of Sync 1, and if they're able to get, I was going to say one more rotation onto Aldertree, it might work out in their favor, but they still should be able to hit that level 6 before that of Sync 1. And in Queasy's case, it is quite important to staying alive as you get that fortified health as you go into that fight, and opening up the opportunity to tank up the front line as DevQ lands the hits on that weapon power pedal.
Yep, and now Sync 1 on this Fortress, not settling for the banner, but building into a full Storm Crown. I don't think Minimizer will be, you know, proud of him at all.
Oh no, what have they done? This is what Minimizer and I talked about in the draft phase, that you just need to, Fortress needs that damage there of the Aftershock. You need to play risky like that into the aggression that's going to be put out from the side of Impunity, because you're really not getting anything out of it, especially playing alongside a Churnwalker. You want to be putting out more damage and more burst damage to really help that Churnwalker gain more health with the futility of life. So it is a bit of an interesting pick up with that Storm Crown first item, and just by Mini and my speculation, we don't think it's going to work out. What do you say, Luxuria?
Well, I mean, this is down to the later part of game, and we saw a spike with Fortress before. As long as Fortress can hold out, and at this point in time, we are not seeing a ton of aggression coming through from Impunity, but I may have just cursed that.
Yep, and Impunity pushing very aggressively indeed onto that first turret. Queasy taking a fair bit of shots from it, so a fair bit of damage as well, putting them under half health for now, but they continue to play aggressively up in this lane with Queasy already at that level 6. Sync 1 now has followed through and hit level 6 as well. They will have Attack of the Pack available to them. So really Sync 1 just going to be a tanky frontliner more than anything. And I guess in their idea of things is they tank up the frontline and let Mr. Jim do the work. The problem is if Queasy gets onto that Adagio, Adagio is going to have a big problem, and DevQ can easily jump away from that Fortress with the trampoline and probably even position themselves in a way where they're also able to burst down Mr. Jim. So I much prefer Impunity's comp and build so far.
Yep, and I don't know about Sync 1 right now. Going for double defense, like you mentioned, going for that very tanky build. Yeah, you can try to out-tank the entirety of Impunity, but as they have got more damage, they can just bust Mr. Jim down, which is only sitting on a reflex block, and in which afterwards can easily just turn attention onto you. And Guessing X, a Churnwalker, and a dog would not do much work at all in team fights. Churnwalker can probably walk the dog, but that is about what Guessing X and Sync 1 can do. So Sync 1, I beg of you, if you can hear me, just immediately just go for your Aftershock right now. Farm up, get your Aftershock ASAP, because you really need that damage item put out enough damage. And as we all know, Aftershock's effectiveness just wears off so hard in that of the late game. So I understand where Sync1 is coming from, maybe trying to peel for that on Mr. Jim, and we've seen that before coming through, where Sync1 just gives the entire jungle over to Mr. Jim.
Well, we have seen the Churnwalker and Fortress comp work out before, so if Impunity don't continue to push their aggression, which is what I'm trying to make them do with the Cast Curse here as they move on to this turret, but am I really just jinxing it in the wrong way? No, we'll see Queasy jump onto Mr. Jim, and meanwhile DefQ more than likely going to be able to take that initial turret, and that looks like the fight going in favor of Impunity as Queasy going to jump in again onto Mr. Jim. Is going fairly low themselves, but they still have the infinite reboot available to them. Probably going to be forced to use it, but didn't get to pop it in time. Will not fall, however, does get the reboot off the back of that. And I was worried that if Impunity didn't play aggressive now, they would really open up an opportunity for, even though Fortress picking up Stormcrown first, would be able to rotate around to picking up the Aftershock after that, and then having their own power spike. But now they are going to go in, get the kill onto Churnwalker, but they sacrifice the Alpha for it, and the pedal goes down to Fortress. It's Cortivore, Mr. Jim. Go Cortivore, you can do it. Supports need kills as well. He's going to even use the Arcade Passage in there. Mr. Jim just one auto away, but he's going behind his turret. There's going to be the Imperial Sigil for the ace. Managed to get just before guessing was up. Good job there, Cortivore.
Well, Cortivore has been known, and in a couple of patches back, actually, not couple, I think a few seasons back, Cortivore has been known to be that captain, that roamer that never dies, firstly, and on top of that, constantly picking up kills for himself. And I think there was one very good play that, you know, old community people would actually remember. It's when Cortivore just 1v3 as a Captain Lance, as a roam Lance, and came out of that, yeah, and he aced the team because of his plays on that Lance. So that is definitely memorable for Cortivore. I mean, his name is out there. He has got a very, you know, notorious impression of himself in the Southeast Asia, you know, community and in the esports scene as well, for being that very aggressive captain that can just ace people and go for the triple kill. But now Impunity collecting it, you know, immense gold payout, putting them at 22.5 thousand over to close to 20k over to the side of Bren Esports. At this point in time, Bren Esports have been looking for relatively good team fights. They know where they should engage, but just cannot execute it. And the only reason being, it's because they just lack the damage, because we saw Gassing X just trying really hard, landing those hook and chains, even pulling Alpha in. Do not allow Alpha to go into the infinite reboot, but it just didn't come out good for them, because Sync1, you need your damage.
And we do see, Trespass going in. It gets blocked. Very good block coming out from Cordoba on that Lyra. However, they're in a bit of a situation here where it looks like they have to back out, at least for now, with Attack of the Pack being used. They managed to burn down the Wolf, so they could go in for the re-engage if they so choose so. And Queasy gang hooked up, needs to be careful. They have the reboot perk back up, so even if they fall, they will have another chance, especially with not too much damage. Oh my, Pedal picking up that kill onto that of Churnwalker, and Alpha going over the wall with the Prime Directive will pick up the kill onto Fortress and follows through for the Adagio. Gets out of there in time, but I'm not sure about that Prime Directive back in. Under will probably give up their own life if they can't take the turret soon enough, but they managed to do so. I think they thought the targeting was off of them when going on to that, but look at this, Impunity playing very aggressive, going through with that aced up minion wave, and the damage they have, it's just so much they're able to get that anchor turret, but they use the block a bit early and Trespass will go off and they manage to stun them up. But look, Impunity trying to kite back from this. They need to take out the Wolves though. Attack of the Pack being so useful for the side of Bren Esports to have a possible turnaround here.
Possible turnaround, Cortivore may be the one that will go down, and there you go, double kill for Mr. Jim on that Adagio. Adagio definitely pulling through, but usually for a weapon Adagio, you know your game spike is, you know, in the early game timing, where, you know, you can just outpoke your enemies, and why even using your ultimate, your basic attacks. 2 basic attacks with probably, I think 3. You can get 3, 4, 5 basic attacks when you're channeling that ultimate. But hey, you take down a turret, so who am I to complain? But, you know, Mr. Jim on this Adagio is building very similar to, you know, Petal or DefQ. And usually that is not the build on Adagio, what we usually would see, especially when Spaghetti's on that weapon Adagio, we'll see that Sorrow Blade first item into Breaking Point into some crit of sort, so that you can just constantly put out large bursts of damage rather than just attack speed. You don't quite need attack speed on Adagio if you can start to stab well on him.
Well, prior to that fight, what I found surprising was DefQ and Mr. Jim actually had even CS, but DefQ was still an item ahead. You saw Mr. Jim pick up the item once he went down to shop, but then all the way up until then, DefQ did have an advantage on him, and they managed to turn around the fight for Bren Esports just because they caught Impunity out when they were low, pushing for that anchor turret. But in terms of objective and overall gold, Impunity still doing fairly well for themselves. They've taken down 3 turrets of Bren Esports, and I believe, I didn't look at the lives left on that sentry, might have been the first one they took down, but still sitting at 31.8k, Octobab 27.5, and now with that Crystal Sentry out the way, they have a lot more room to fight in, and a lot more opportunities to choose the fights they want, as they're trying to pressure something here, guessing, constantly landing the hook and chains, but not really going in off the back of it. Just either team waiting for that chance to engage.
Yep, they are definitely waiting for it, but QC though may be caught up with those hook and chains, but will be able to back off Impunity, clearing the entire jungle out off the side of Bren Esports. And although Mr. Jim have got a level 11 infusion pop as with Sync 1, they are not quite looking for anything just yet. Maybe, maybe a Caster's Curse will come through, as they are moving very aggressively towards that of Impunity.
And they might be able to steal it, but no, Queasy managing to secure that gold mine for their team and pushing that gold lead even further, seeing a 5k lead, 34.2k over to 29.1, and looking very good for themselves when coming around to that Kraken stage. I think any team that's sitting at 5k by now should be happy with themselves and fairly confident. You can see that of the Crystal Infusion and the Weapon Power Infusion being picked up on the side of Impunity, so really being able to have the gold to invest in those kind of items, whereas if they wait out long enough, Mr. Jim's Infusion will run out fairly soon. Sync 1 still kind of just over halfway through, but if they can bait it out, they should be able to find a favorable fight. But no, Impunity, they have the damage, they're just going to go in. There's the Arcane Passage, but no Bright Bulwark to follow through. Trespass does stun up Queasy, and there's going to be the re-engagement onto Guessing, but it's going to be enough? Yeah, it will be, because Petal falls on the backline, however, so Mr. Jim not being able to pop that Termination Protocol, so very bad and crucial for them that they weren't able to do that, and now is going to hand over the ace to the side of Bren Esports, and with Sync 1, finally the tanky build is going to pay off, as it allows them to go for this Kraken. Mr. Jim able to put down the damage while Sync 1 tanks it for him, and they could easily turn this fight around.
They can easily, and this is what I'm talking about. Had Fortress just built this Aftershock much earlier and just ditched the Storm Crown, Fortress could have just done something, would have worked something out in the earlier game and not allowed Impunity to just push this hard into them. But because that didn't quite come through, but what is Mr. Jim doing? Going in a 1v1 with them?
Yep, and we see DefQ going so very low. I would more so ask what DefQ was doing there, but he did win out the duel, so good on him. They're now going to be able to get a free Kraken, and Bren Esports just throwing away the opportunity they had to turn this one around. They will easily get one turret out of this, as it's going to take just one hit. There we go. Kraken just walking past that. Probably go brush past it with their leg and it would have fallen, but no, mechanics of Kraken sadly not allowed to do that, and is going to get only one hit off on the anchor turret. So Impunity in the end getting probably the most out of that.
Yep, I mean, if you throw an Impunity do smack it with their bat, you can try to rush in for a home run, unless of course, it's a strike. But, into this particular game itself, I want to say something that I don't usually say, and it's that the clockwork. I personally don't think the clockwork is coming very well for quarter four. Yes, you have quicker Imperial Sigils, you have quicker Bright Bulwark, lower cooldowns on those, but it is not coming through just yet. I would have preferred if quarter four maybe not go, just go for that mainstream Fountain on Lyra, so you just add the extra sustain for your team. But maybe for Quarter War, that is the optional item in this patch.
The team's not sure where anyone is. Neither of the teams know. There's no scout traps placed down. There's going to be the flare coming through. They finally find Bren Esports. But you can see, is Pedal really? Oh my. As long as Alpha and Quarter War can keep them at bay, Pedal's gonna get a turret. They're gonna get one. They might even look for more as they push him with these minions. But let's go back to the fight where Mr. Jim going fairly low to that Alpha. There's a trespass keeping them alive for another second, and they're managing to able to pick up that kill. But meanwhile, Pedal fighting it out with not Mr. Jim Sync One picking up that kill. So both wins in the lane and in the jungle for the side of Bren Esports. They're gonna be up to finish this game. Queasy just, you know, making sure guessing doesn't back it, not even caring, knowing that Pedal's got this undercover, under wrap. They're gonna take the crystal, take the game. Impunity looked a bit shaky there as they lost the Kraken, but they really managed to push through in the end, and very impressive with DefQ managing to win out that fight against the Fortress. I mean, it was DefQ really built up against Fortress with only an Aftershock, so it was kind of inevitable, but the fact that they were both able to win out their fights in respective areas, and Impunity overall winning the game as a true team, well played by them, and yeah, GG.
I want to say it's really just because DefQ just did a very good job catching